Welcome to episode 17 of the Fatal Vision podcast. I'm your host, James McGinnis, and with me, as always, is your other host, Billy Glidden. Billy, it's a humongous red letter day. This is
Um,
our
uh,
first podcast since we went public, and the amount of the response has been breathtaking.
yeah, I've just been refreshing our analytics every few minutes. We're up to 412 plays all
Total,
time.
total plays. That could be 1 second, it could be 1 hour. It could be one person 412 times. Started one episode. It's just an incredible amount of volume. It's
No,
breathtaking.
well, no, they make a distinction here between plays and starts. So
Oh, they do. Just so, the starts don't even, what's a start?
it's when somebody starts it but doesn't continue,
Oh, so someone actually, these are people that got through an entire episode.
or big chunks. I mean, definitely a few minutes. So.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know. I always knew that there were other people like us out there just looking for more MacDonald and Fatal Vision content. But to actually see that vision realized, I don't really know how to describe it.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the success is unbelievable. And it's a pure act of service. Just, we haven't profited one penny yet.
Nope.
Not a single cent. And I'll share something. This is, our listeners' reaction has just been overwhelming. We've gotten letters of support from on various socials, including the Jeffrey MacDonald Family Murders private group on Facebook.
We love you guys,
We love
man.
you guys. You're the best. We did get a couple hostile comments, not about the case, about our personal politics, which is to be expected as public figures. We're open to that now, and we can take it.
Yep.
So we take the good with the bad.
Everybody's welcome here now. We need to
But yeah,
we
no, we
need to
certainly
be united.
certainly won't be speaking out against anybody or anything now because in 2025 that can get you killed.
Yes.
So we'll leave that there. You can take what you want and leave the rest. Uh, anyway, big things have happened since we last recorded. Obviously, we put up our whole back list. Then I fell violently sick for a long time, so we couldn't record. Um, but Billy, what about you? You been on any road trips lately? You been out into the Rockies or anything?
Been riding the subway a lot. Tonight I
Oh
was on the
yeah,
subway. I was on the subway for about an hour tonight.
going about 1 mile or so.
Yeah. I didn't even have to go anywhere. I just like to get out there and ride and look at the people, be among my fellow New Yorkers.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just like to get out there and check it out. Q train,
Good
Q line.
stuff. Yeah, riding around.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yeah, pretty dope, pretty dope. Hey, can I say something real quick? I want to give a shout out to Dottie. Can we give it up for Dottie?
Dottie, yeah, Dottie. Um, Amazing group. Um,
Founder of the
Founder,
Jeffrey MacDonald Family Murder private
a
Facebook group.
very active founder and active listener to the podcast. We're inspired to do this by your dedication to the case, and we know there's more like you out there that haven't found their cause yet, and they're on their way thanks to people like you keeping the light on. So thank you, Dottie.
Dottie, you're the best. And then there was another member of the group. I could try to find it, but she called you a hero, James.
Yeah, she said, "I'm a hero." It's the first time that's been uttered.
Yes, or
Um,
typed. Yeah.
Not even in sarcasm. I've been called lots of things, and so that's good. And I don't take it lightly. we are doing an active service here as holding up the anti-Jeffrey MacDonald wing of society every time we record. We're
Yep.
not here to be impartial or, give him let him give his side a chance to be heard.
Well, sometimes we do invite the McDonald defender into the
Yeah, the
room.
specter of the
Right.
MacDonald defender's incoherent ramblings. That's always a fun feature. That's one of the things my mom says she liked about the podcast.
Oh, your mom liked it. Yeah, my
My
mom has
mom liked the whole,
my,
my
my
mom said it
mom.
was an amazing podcast, is what she said. And there's an email to that effect.
Yeah, my
Unfortunately,
mom.
Billy,
My
what
mom
about your
hasn't
mom?
made it. She hasn't
Hasn't
made
made
it through.
hasn't heard an episode yet. Okay. So, but it's still early. We're still proving ourselves out here. We got to just keep posting week in, week out. And in
And I,
18
I
years,
actually mean I actually mean this now. We've been doing a bit for many weeks now, back when our audience was imagined, and we would say things like, please like, subscribe, donate, comment, email.
hmm
We actually do want you to give us a star rating on whatever app you're using, because it does help get this in front of more people.
yeah, the algorithm giveth and the algorithm taketh away. And your engagement showing that you're an active fan will help people who are not exposed to the case or even to the work of literature known as Fatal Vision to become familiar with it. And what a better time than when the new 2025 edition is on the shelves. Barnes and Noble, I saw that today with my own eyes. A whopping 2 copies in the true crime section.
Wow.
Yep, but it was facing out, facing out. So that's always nice.
Nice.
So yes, please be active. Please email us, vent, or ask questions, whatever you want. We're at your service. Um, well, we have our work cut out for us, Billy, because while I was sick, one of the things I would do when I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm still not 100% better, you'll hear me coughing throughout this episode, is listen to out of order different parts. I couldn't listen to the stuff we're dealing with because we're in the middle of it, but I'll listen to head to the McDonald cross-examination and to the grand jury testimony and to the April 6th interrogation. Um, so there's a lot of great stuff to do, a lot of reading to do. We have 3 episodes that'll fit a chapter each. So we got to get to work on that chapter tonight if you want to get through it in one try. The audiobook was able to get the whole thing in 20 minutes, and we're going to try to build in our commentary around that and beyond that. So if you're reading along, it's part 1. It's after chapter 7. It is known as The Voice of Jeffrey MacDonald. Let's compare pages. Billy, what do you got? I'm on page 75 of the 2025 edition.
Okay. I am on page 94 of the 1983 hardcover.
Wow. Wow. And let's just for fun, um let's see where we land on the 2012 edition with its very crowded pages. That would be 112 on the 2012 edition. So we now have 3 different page counts. That's great. Billy, can you start us off?
All right, we're going to be spending time with Jeff tonight.
Jeffrey, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for recording this for us so we can go through your words line by line, word by word, and just absolutely humiliate you. Thank you.
The voice of Jeffrey McDonald. I think, if there was a low point to the marriage, it was the summer after our year in Princeton. Oh, that was the low point.
Oh,
Okay.
so he's really being vulnerable here.
That was a bad summer. We were living at my mom and dad's house. I believe we took over my mom and dad's bedroom and they moved upstairs. And my sister Judy was there, and my brother Jay was in and out, and it was tight. Also, hey James, are the words mom and dad capitalized in your version?
No.
Interesting. They're capitalized in mine, which I think is actually an error unless the appropriate usage changed because he's not using them as proper nouns. He's saying my mom and my dad.
Yeah,
So
maybe you have a rare misprint that might be worth millions of dollars.
I think Nancy Doherty would enjoy this observation.
Okay, well, hopefully she'll make it to this episode. I'm sure she will.
The one time I met her, she corrected my use of the word can when I should have said may.
Wow,
She's
that's
she's a,
harsh.
she's a good copy editor.
That's very harsh.
Well,
Um,
I deserved it. Also, I was gone too much of the time. I worked out at Montauk, managing the building of 300 houses, and I had never been in construction in my life. So he's
so
crushing
straight to the top.
it. I was totally faking it. I was superintendent on the job at age 18 or 19, managing hundreds and hundreds of workmen in way over my head, but making like $400 a week, which was tremendous money at that time.
I would take that now.
Yeah, yeah, that's even with inflation. I would take that.
Yeah. He thought that there had been inflation in 79 when he recorded this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, inflation's going up again.
Yeah, thank God.
All right, but I was
Yeah.
out there most of Monday through Friday. And then when I came home, I spent the weekend over on Fire Island driving a beach taxi. Uh-oh.
Ooh, can't go there, Billy. We'll have to,
Can't?
not tonight. I don't know.
Yikes.
That's yeah. I mean, we don't want to get another lawsuit on our hands.
That's some stuff that is not in the book, but we know about.
Yeah, it might be for a premium subscriber podcast someday.
I made about 350 or $400 on the weekends, so I was making over 700 for sure, and some weeks up to $1,000.
He's just crushing it.
Yeah, well, not a
This is the
thousand.
worst summer of his life.
I repeat, he then says, well, not 1,000.
Ah,
About 850 was the highest week. That was the fourth, that was the July 4th weekend, as a matter of fact. But it was a hard, long summer, and things were a little tense between Colette and I because I was away so much, and when I was home, I was too tired to pay good attention. Of course, that should be Colette and me.
oh, so yeah, he's gonna get dragged too for the grammar, not just his, not just the typesetter in '83.
Yep.
I would be aggravated. I would, ascribe it to the tiredness of the week. We needed to build up money for the coming school year. That was our rationale. But having the young baby at home, having Colette with my parents, maybe it did seem a little easier to find those weekends of work over at Fire Island. Weekends of work. But I didn't spend too much time with Colette. I didn't spend much time with Kimberly, and Colette was a little uptight, I'm sure, about having to live with mom and dad. That one is proper nouns. Um, and I think the relationship may have been at a low ebb. So this is really bearing his soul. It's sort of like the point. Here it is. But the nadir, the absolute bottom of a relationship, was the trip to Chicago in September for the start of my 4 years at medical school. All right, so just doubling back, a little Easter egg there. He's managing, the tens of thousands of workmen at the age of 18 and making like $1 million a second.
Hundreds and hundreds.
It's totally faking it. At the grand jury in a couple, and he it's revealed that he was having an affair with the receptionist at the construction company. Is one of his many, many, many ones, but just a little Easter egg. We'll get back to that later.
Mm.
Which is funny because he knows that he's telling Joe this story, but maybe he doesn't know Joe will ever see what was in the grand jury, which was sealed. So could be that information wasn't. He thought maybe he had control over that flow. We'll never know.
Got it.
Anyway, we got to get back to the deer. We were driving to a 1959 blue Chevy station wagon, and we packed it up and got the maps out and found out where Chicago was. Maps for you Gen Z listeners out there, but according to Spotify, there are none. Um, those are these paper things we used to look at before GPS. We had never been to Chicago and plotted our course. The Chevy was overloaded, and we were towing a trailer, and I was full of optimism about a new challenge ahead. But Colette, I think, in all honesty, was a little frightened.
Mm,
You know, we had Kim, so we weren't just two people bumming around. And the trip was long and tiring. The car loaded down, hot, the end of summer, me tired, and the relationship with Colette and Kim was, a little brittle. And if you ever driven to Chicago, it's an awesome experience because you drive across the Midwest for hours and hours and hours of wheat fields and cornfields. And then finally off in the distance, you see this mushroom of ugly gray brown smoke. And that is the beginning of the industrial complex in Indiana, East Gary, Indiana, East Chicago, Indiana, Gary, Indiana, and the south end of Lake Michigan. And from that point, around the corner of the lake, back up behind the lake to Chicago was about, 35 or 40 miles. And 20 miles of it leading into Chicago were the slums of Chicago, the South Side. So we've got
hmm
a little Kerouac allusion here. It's just sort of waxing poetic about the landscape. He really has sort of a gift. Um, I'll take us through the Chicago slums,
All
Billy.
right. All right.
I can still remember driving through the south side of Chicago, and I was never in my wildest dreams ever imagined that there would be a city that we would be going to with literally 20 miles of slums, including miles of those high-rise tenement apartments with the laundry hanging out the windows and no windows in a lot of the apartments. And of course, the signs were confusing, and we had gotten on the wrong freeway, and we got off several times. This is with a heavy trailer and the car overloaded and Kim having a rough trip. And it was raining. And I looked over at Colette. She was crying. That moment was probably the low point, in our relationship.
Oh,
My initial impulse was to be angry. Why was she crying? We were starting this great new adventure, but then I think uncharacteristically for me at the time, I thought better of it and realized that it was the better part of valor to realize that things were a little tense,
wow.
transmuting anger into the better part of valor. And I remember looking over at her with Kimberly crying too, and both of us hot and tired from the trip and also hot and tired from the summer, from maybe 3 months of not having a good relationship. And I remember pulling off and asking for final directions at one of those crummy gas stations on the turnpike or freeway or whatever it's called going into Chicago from Gary, Indiana. Indiana. And I remember resolving to myself that we would make, a better go of it and turn into Colette. And I remember I held her in the front seat of the car, which was not like me. It was not like me to hug her and console her. It was much This is great. It was much more like me to be a little more distant and formal. And I held her and talked to her. But I held her and talked to her. And she calmed down immediately. In fact, she brightened considerably, much more so than a few soothing words would make it seem. It was, I think, the fact that I pulled off to the side of the road and held her, talked to her, and said that things would be okay, that we'd make it financially and emotionally, and medical school was going to be a snap. It was really strange, but it was like one of those instances in time. Something really flowed between us and we sort of strengthened our resolve. In 15 or 20 minutes, we seemed to really a lot of the summer fell away, and Colette ended up laughing and saying, "Yes, this is what we want. Medical school and your medical degree, and then we go from there."
Okay, so a few reactions here. Again, he is writing the book that he thinks Joe is going to write.
Yeah.
So he's imagining Joe rendering this amazing, beautiful scene of him pulling off the road and holding her, and then Colette looking up at him suddenly with hope in her eyes and saying, "Yes, this is what we want." And then what does she say they want? Medical school and your medical degree. So
Your
yeah,
career.
she's completely committed to his career. This is what we want. Now, I just re-listened to the Morally Indefensible podcast because some friends of mine are listening to it and I want to be able to discuss it. And I'm remembering that one of the letters that Joe wrote to Jeff while he was in prison was like, it's quite funny. It's like, come on, Jeff, marriage is not always that great. You can talk about
You could
it.
talk to me. Let it all hang loose.
Yeah, yeah,
And so this is the
that came to mind during that section, yeah.
yeah, so this was like his attempt at showing some um the dark side of marriage.
But he still ends up being the hero.
No, and there's like literally nothing bad that happens at all. He's just breezing past this summer. He doesn't have she has no attributed dialogue through the entire section until she just submits to like everything is going to be okay and
No, she's just crying. She's being all
yeah,
weak.
weak and then he's like it's not like me to console her.
She was scared, but Jeff
Yeah.
was optimistic.
That's just what he's like. He just always sees the best in things, clearly.
She's very timid.
Yeah. So he just keeps talking about it being the absolute low point and never got worse or it would never have been worse. They're 19 or something.
Hmm.
Um, it's just it's sort of preposterous, but to accept that and it's obviously not true at all, given what we're going to learn that the investigators uncover about their marriage and Joe helps uncovers and the Kassabs and um but I always think of it now I'm just thinking of this as like this is the raw dough that he's feeding Joe hoping it's going to be crafted into like a 50-page saga of like the worst summer of our lives and
Right,
he's going to like sort of breathe life into it with flowery prose
right,
as they
right.
descend upon Chicago through all the slums and all the filth. He's just not. I like the classism on display too. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Keep going. We got yeah.
Freshman year in medical school was a tough year. There's really no other way to describe it. Scholastically, it was very hard. I was working around the clock, almost nonstop. I think around the clock means nonstop.
Yeah. So it's
I was a medical student, so this was not an uncommon syndrome, and I was Jeff, the medical student, so I worked harder than most. It was definitely a year of trials.
do you think we're getting more like is Joe like feeding us more and more preposterous tapes as we go along here? It seems like it gets better every time. In terms of just like the narcissism part.
I mean, the Penny Wells chapter is hard to top, but
Yeah, you're right. And the whole thing about Cosmo Caravazzi,
Yakavazzi, man.
Iacovazzi, sorry, yeah.
In any event, our apartment was tiny, a very small city-style one-bedroom apartment, and we set up the playpen for Kim in the living room, and it was the centerpiece, sort of. We had the bedroom to ourselves, but we had a very tiny kitchen. In fact, Colette couldn't buy too many groceries at once because the kitchen was so small I'm just hearing stuff in my walls. Hold on. Sorry
Oh,
about that.
critters.
Yeah, I hear critters in the walls. Yeah. That's not ideal.
No, it's not good.
In fact, Colette couldn't buy too many groceries at once because the kitchen was so small, and she was kind of tied up with Kim, pretty well tied down to home. So there was always that normal amount of, I think, frustration and small aggravations. My greatest remembrance of the apartment, to be honest, was the tiny kitchen and Colette working feverishly in there to prepare meals for us. One thing was we had the beginnings of the fraternity thing in medical school, which was not a big deal, and I was never rah rah fraternity, but we were rushed for these fraternities, and I eventually joined Nu Sigma Nu. Sophomore year was, I think, our most difficult. We lost the apartment we'd had right across from the medical school, and I had to look for one and found one in our price range in a bad area, a poor white area, several miles north. Chicago has several pockets of poor white. So he's okay, so he's going into like a sociological.
Yeah, he's explaining to you how this works.
Chicago has several pockets of poor whites, and I mean from Appalachia, where they walk around barefoot through the streets of Chicago, and a lot of bars and honky tonks, and it's a very low rent district. The apartment was decent inside and seemed very secure, but to be honest, Colette, I'm sure, was very uncomfortable, home alone with Kim in a bad neighborhood when I was down at school so much. And, I also had some part-time jobs. I'm gonna do one more paragraph.
Okay.
Then there was the year when we went home for Christmas and found my father getting sicker. It was not emphysema, and it did not seem to be cancer of the lung, and no one can figure out why he was getting so radically ill. It turned out he had Hammond-Rich syndrome or pulmonary fibrosis of unknown etiology, which is mildly familial and always gives us cause for thought. Hmm.
Hmm.
It's interesting. You know about pulmonary fibrosis?
Do I?
Yeah.
I know that's what your father had.
Yeah, that's interesting. Unknown etiology. Yeah, it still is.
Yeah, that's that's a crazy connection.
Yeah,
Um,
man. I feel so connected to Jeff now.
oh, yeah. I mean, we are just raking him here, but he is living through some pretty horrible things.
Yep.
But he's just gonna. I think as to read ahead, I think we'll just breeze right past it as always. Because it doesn't really fit his narrative too much.
Right.
In any case, Dad was homesick, and I remember that Christmas vacation was a time when we sat and talked a lot. I did some work in the bedroom to make it more comfortable for him, put up some bookshelves and a shelf for a radio and better lighting, and made his bedroom a little more comfortable and felt that we sort of made our peace with each other. So yeah, he has an amazing cathartic thing with his dad, just like on the spot right at the end. I am forever thankful for that Christmas vacation because I think my dad and I got to know each other better than we ever had our whole life. I think we really sealed our love and friendship as late as it was on that vacation. He had an incredible grasp of people intuitively, and I think he knew me and knew me well and loved me, but still, I didn't have enough communication with him, and to this day believe I wish I had told him one more time, a little more clearly, how much I loved him, maybe allowing him then to tell me that he also loved me. Who knows? In any event, he died shortly thereafter, March 5th, 1966. So just, yeah, we never actually said we loved each other, but oh well. Now he's dead. Back to school. Junior year was the start of of the better years for us. We moved to a real nice house in the suburbs, a two-family house in a middle-class area, and we lived on the second floor, and we had trees in the front yard and backyard. We were living in a much better lifestyle, and it was a much nicer area of town. I think I got that. Also, I became the sports chairman for Nu Sigma Nu, this fraternity that I had joined. We knew that too. We had teams in football, softball, and basketball, and I was very active in that. Oh, it's shocking. The people that lived below us was a Thai couple, a Thai from Thailand. He was a surgical resident, a super guy, very good surgeon. As a matter of fact, I did my first appendectomy because of him. So here comes, okay, so we got all of one paragraph about this illness and death of his father, and now this is going to be like a whole page about the appendectomy and just this amazing turn in his medical heroism. I had scrubbed with him on several cases. Of course, the medical student is low on the totem pole, but he liked my answers to some questions and also liked my aggressiveness. And I remember specifically one evening about 8 o'clock, I was walking through the hall. This was at Wesley Memorial Hall Hospital, and we were supposed to be through with our work around 5:30 or 6 during a surgical clerkship. And this was not my night on call. And this resident from Thailand saw me and said he thought I was off for the evening. And I said, well, I was just finishing an interesting workshop and getting ready for rounds for the next morning. And he said, well, have you ever done an appendectomy? It turned out he had a patient in the emergency room. So I said, sure, I've done appendectomies. And he kind of looked at me and I smiled a little bit and said, okay, let's go then. He said, okay, let's go then. I want you to be my first assistant and maybe you'll do it. Well, this is a big thing for a junior in medical school. This is a big thing for an intern. So I jumped for it. I said, sure, no problem. We went upstairs, changed into scrub suits, and scrubbed in. And then we went into the operating suite, and it was like a teenage boy, as I remember. I would say like 14 or something, 14 or about 16, I think he was. And we did an appendectomy. Actually, I did it. I was on the right side, and I had the scalpel, and I took, it says bracketed laugh. It seemed like it took forever. The nurse was going crazy because the scrub nurses like to think they run the rooms when this resident said Dr. MacDonald is going to be doing this appendectomy. The nurses sort of smiled at each other and groaned and said, oh no, here we go, a first. Uh, I'll turn it over to you, Bill.
I assured them that it wasn't the first, but an hour and a half later, in what should have been 20 or 30 minutes, they knew it had been a first, and so did the surgical resident, and so did I. But the patient did fine. He, in fact, did have a hot appendix, and we took it out, and he did very well with no complications. We crushed it.
Yeah.
In any case, as I was going into surgery, I remember calling Colette and telling her that I was going. Okay, so we're about to get a description of a Colette moment, so we can be
Yeah.
sure
So
that
we got
he.
all that's to hear how she
So I
sees it.
I haven't turned the page yet, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess he tells us how she felt. I
Okay.
remember calling Colette and telling her that I was going in to do an appendectomy and would be late for dinner, and she said, "What dinner? You were supposed to be here at 6." And it was now 8:30 or 9. And I was telling her I wouldn't be home until midnight. And the following night, of course, was the night I was on call. So to make a long story short, I got home real late and Colette was sitting up waiting, and we had a little glass of liqueur together. And she, I remember, was very pleased by how excited I was after my first experience as an operating surgeon. And we talked about it for 45 minutes or so and went to bed. I called that.
Wow. Yeah, she took that in stride.
Yeah, what dinner? So he's
You're
he's
already 3 hours late.
3 hours
Oh,
late, and then he gets
oh.
home, and she's
I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna stay up till 2 in the morning with a baby and drink
right,
liqueur.
and she
And
was and she was very pleased. So wait, I gotta think about this story for a second. So the Thai surgeon is like, "Hey man, like, do you want to go do this appendectomy? Could be
and
very
being as awesome
cool."
as I was, I'll never say no.
So then he goes and he does a quick appendectomy. Mrs. Dinner at
Well,
home.
no, he calls her before the surgery. He's already 3 hours late because he's just such a hard worker. He doesn't even know where the time went. Um,
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's what
so he
happened.
was already
He was
supposedly,
going into
yeah,
surgery and he called her. So he was already
yeah,
running quite late
right,
before.
yeah. And he hadn't thought to call her until then. But she took it very well, and I'm assuming went on to the next day with the baby with on like an hour of sleep.
I remember she was very pleased. So we have in this chapter now, for those keeping score at home, we have Jeff. We have one cathartic experience of Jeff hugging Colette on the side of the road,
Hmm.
healing her instantly.
Hmm.
And then we have a transforming, healing moment of grace and recognition between father and son.
Sort of wedged into Christmas Vacation. Just it was all around carpentry around his dad's room.
And now we have a successful appendectomy and a very pleased wife, another emotional,
Yeah, and this is like we got through 3 years here. Just
yeah.
he assumed wasn't happy at the second apartment in the poor white neighborhood. Um, but I
Yeah,
guess he never actually heard about it.
yeah, those people were weird, man, with their bare feet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking barefooted, literal Appalachia.
Now, this was the year that we bracket laugh, ha ha ha, found out that Colette was pregnant with Kristy. This was exciting to both of us. I remember we thought about it for about 5 minutes after we found out, and then we were overjoyed. Huh. We never had any hesitation at all about the happiness about having Kristy. Okay, so call back to the,
Yeah, the hand wringing over Kimmy.
yeah. Kimmy, of course, had been conceived out of wedlock, so to speak. Okay, we're going to talk about it. And that was, threatening to us both. It did, it was a big thing. It was a big step, and it meant we were getting married and living together and having a child. And there was the haste of getting ready for a wedding and everything, while going back to Princeton. So that was a more difficult conceptual thing to get through. No pun intended. Hmm.
Wow,
Hmm.
I get it. Conceiving.
That's
Is that the
funny.
that's the pun?
That's
Okay.
funny. Christie was a much more joyous occasion. In fact, that Colette was pregnant, neither of us felt that this was any major catastrophe at all. That's good.
Phew.
We kind of looked forward to it. And the closer we got to the delivery, Colette slowed down. I tried to pitch in a little more with Kim in the home, and we got ready. Christy was born in May, and although this was a happy event, it was the time of the near tragedy with Colette. Colette had had a very difficult time with Kimmy, had gone into a long, difficult labor, and eventually cesarean section. And with Christy, what happened was she was going into normal labor, and then very precipitously, the fetal heart tones dropped, and the doctor had to operate in a hurry up fashion. I was in the room while she was in labor, but I left for the surgery. I felt very uncomfortable. My normal aggressiveness was all gone in the face of Colette's surgery, and she seemed to be well, and Christy was fine. So I went home. Hmm. My normal
Sketchy.
aggressiveness.
It's one of his favorite ways to describe himself is, and he'll do that in the April 6th interrogation as well. They ask him to describe himself, and he's like, "I'm bright, aggressive. I didn't murder my wife and kids."
When I went back early the next morning to see Colette, she looked terrible. She looked white as a sheet. and she was soaked with perspiration. And I walked over to
Oh
her and
my,
I said,
wait, this is where he's gonna save her life. Like the doctors don't know what they're doing, and he like fixes everything. This is gonna be wild.
"Honey, are you okay?" She said she felt fluttery in her chest and she felt like she was going to die. I reached down to feel her pulse, and I remember very specifically thinking that I can't feel her pulse, but that's okay. I'm going to not let her know that I can't really feel her pulse very well. Then I looked for her intravenous, and her intravenous was out. There wasn't any intravenous going, and she was clearly in early shock. So I went out and yelled for the nurse. And when the nurse came, I said, "Where the hell is her IV?" And the nurse said, "The doctor is on his way." And I said, "I don't care about the doctor. I want to know where her IV is and what's her blood pressure." And I grabbed her chart from the rack, and her blood pressure had been going down for several hours, and her pulse had been going up. And I said, "What the hell is going on here? You don't even have a handle on your patient. That's my wife in there." And she said, "Now relax. You're not allowed to go back in." And I said, "Not allowed to go back in?" I said, "I'm the one who's treating her now." Yeah.
I just point. I just want to say we've gotten more lines of dialogue out of this nurse character than out of Colette the entire chapter. It's pretty cool.
That's so true. Um, so I went back inside and the nurse came in with an IV card and she started to stick Colette, but she couldn't get one going. So I grabbed it from her and told her to find me another nurse who knew what the hell she was doing. And she left the room, very upset, by the way. And I started the IV. And shortly thereafter, a very excited nurse and the doctor arrived. And I took him out in the hallway, or he took me out in the hallway. And I told him that she was in shock, that she had a belly pain, that she had a very fast pulse and a low blood pressure, and she looked terrible. Go ahead.
Here's what the doctor said. He said, well, she's probably having some bleeding in her tummy from the surgery. And that, in fact, is what it was. They ended up doing a second operation right away, and she got several blood transfusions, and they opened her up and found an arterial bleeder, a little artery that had a ligature around it, but the ligature had slipped off, and she was pumping blood into her tummy and had bled several quarts. She only has 11 pints, you know, 5.5 quarts in a 170-pound male. So she probably only has 9.5 to begin with. And she had bled a good half of that into her stomach. So she was in real trouble when I found her. It was very close. She, I think, for a while there was in a very risky situation. Um, he really has quite the knack for writing like a medical thriller. Maybe I was hoping for like at least half the book to be sort of like the heroics. There's probably all these lost years in LA that no one knows about, like all the people he saved and
Hey,
take.
he was a good surgeon.
There's no question about it.
Yep.
Yeah, he performed good surgeries. Anyway, that episode sort of intensified our feelings for each other. I almost lost her, and it meant something. It just Colette became a more intense, a more real need for me then because I'd almost lost her. And then when she came home from the hospital, she in turn felt a new dependence on me.
Oh,
Well, shocking. She was always dependent on me. She was never really an independent person. But when she came home from the hospital, she was tireder now, much t tireder than she would have been, and her recovery took a little longer. There was a new ability to lean on me and to hug me once in a while when she wanted to, and not when I wanted to. I had to keep up my school duties, of course, but we were able to have more interplay than before. Okay.
huh.
Section break. It's kind of like a jammed in
We're approaching the end.
Yeah. All right, section break. Our senior year, we had the nice house. We had Kim and Chris, and both of them were doing fine. Colette had recovered nicely by now, and I made Alpha Omega Alpha, which was the honorary society in medical school for the top 10% of the students. And that was a real honor. I felt very good about that. It was also the time that we were applying for internships, and I believe it was in the early fall. Several of us went together to make a circuit of areas that we wanted to visit for potential internships. I was being wooed by Northwestern Hospital to be an intern there because my record was so good in medical school. But Colette and I felt that we wanted to get out of Chicago. So I took off on an internship tour with two of my classmates and good friends. We went out to the West Coast and we did the Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco tour. And I was kind of impressed, but not as impressed as I thought I would be.
Oh no.
But the tour was kind of fun. It was kind of a bachelor night out. Oh man, you can only imagine what kind of a tour that was. One of the guys was married, and one was not. And I was married to Colette. But to be honest, we had a blast on this trip. We went out every night and had plenty of beer and drinks. And I remember being a little stunned by the openness of the girly shows in Los Angeles and San Francisco. We went to a place called the Body Shop in Los Angeles, and I remember thinking, gee, I hadn't seen anything quite like this, where the audience participation took place. And we went to Carol Doda's Condor Club up in San Francisco, and there was some famous competitor of hers then had a club two doors away, and we went to that one and we did this whole tour. Had an absolute blast.
Mm.
All right, we'll turn it over to Billy for the home stretch. That was wild.
He's
You
having
left
a
out all the good
great
stuff.
he's having a great time.
Audience participation.
I ended up liking San Francisco General best as far as the hospitals went. It was the most dynamic, most exciting, most trauma filled, clearly a knife and gun club atmosphere. The surgeons were clearly in charge, but its ranking wasn't quite yet up to that of some of the others. So I ended up, to make a long story short, ranking Columbia Presbyterian first on my application simply because I felt it was the best hospital that I had seen or heard of except for Mass General. And I had decided that I didn't want to go to Boston. I don't know what I decided that on. I just decided that I really didn't want to go the Boston route. And Columbia Presbyterian always seemed to be number two in the country behind Mass General. So I applied, had a good interview, liked it. It was a little awesome. The structure is so gigantic and overwhelming that it's a magnificent place, but I didn't have any warm dynamic feelings for it like I did for San Francisco General. But when we got ranked that spring, I got Columbia Presbyterian, my first choice. I'm not sure Colette was really that happy about it, but it was such a hard to get internship. It was so impressive that overwhelmed us. And I remember my friends, even Bob McGon, who got into Mass General number one in our class, was impressed. Oh my God. We worked hard even in senior year. Colette was taking in papers for typing and doing lots of babysitting for pay, in addition to taking care of Kimmy and Kristy. And I was having all my odd jobs, working at the Chicago Tribune Employees Clinic, as well as doing autopsies over at the VA hospital. And Colette was now taking English classes at Northwestern. But we still seemed to find time for each other and for the kids, and still to go out socially. We liked Rush Street and the nightclubs, and we went to Mr. Kelly's several times, and we even tried some of the jazz clubs in the South Side. And we ate at a lot of ethnic places. There was a little Greek place over near Cook County Hospital, and we tried Mexican food for the first time, and we found the Italian places that we liked, and we went to movies, and we stayed out late, and we went to the Playboy Club. I had a key to the Playboy Club, and we also had a lot of people over for dinner. Our house was kind of more of a social center than some of our other friends' houses. The kids were doing fine this senior year, and the sports teams that we were involved in, laugh, bracketed, did very well too. We had a blast, I remember, in the winter tournament in basketball.
End of chapter.
Good ending. Why did he land there?
Yeah, what do you think about, did he stick the landing there? It's the winter tournament.
I think so. I mean,
I
how
mean, he just ended the all of this. So he had that little this like one paragraph thing about, oh, Colette opened up, we were this new dependency and sweetness opened up, and there's this breakthrough, and then there's just like this avalanche of total bullshit for
the
two
ba the
pages.
bachelor night out?
Yeah, the why, and like name check, name dropping every single strip club and burlesque house and whorehouse or whatever they are, and then the Playboy Club and the odd jobs and like Bob McGann, number one in his class. He was impressed with Jeff, so he was technically not number. He was number one. It was the number one was impressed. It was just like it's just like the amount of stuff. And this is gonna be really interesting because the amount of incredibly specific detail he's offering us about like things that are completely meaningless in terms of just but to him it's everything. It's just status and the food, the restaurant stuff is bizarre, right? It's always about knowing where the Italian restaurants are, like getting the best pasta.
I know. All the
And then
ethnic
he
places.
he runs he always runs into all these memory lapses though. We're gonna find very soon. And like over the rest of the book, he's
Yeah.
gonna whenever he's put on the spot about just like these critical hours at home, it's like he can't remember a damn thing. I mean, I think I got it right, but maybe I got some of the details wrong. Um, but maybe we can invite the McDonald defender in here and be like, look, guys, this is just a guy bearing his soul. He's trying to give as much color as possible to his biographer versus someone who's been coached by elite lawyers to give as little to the prosecution as possible and put
Right.
on a great defense. So, as Americans and as patriots, you shouldn't be denigrating someone's right to a strong defense. It's not about whether you're guilty or innocent. He was doing what was right to get acquitted or make the best chance of acquittal. What
Yeah,
about
also he revealed a lot of this marriage stuff to Joe, believing Joe was a sympathizer,
hmm
and Joe is asking him for this information, and now you're gonna just make him look really whack for
Oh, it's not
sharing
fair at all.
the
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Well, it's just it's almost as if um he didn't think it was ever possible that Joe would have do any fact checking on any of these things
Right.
in terms of like literally just talk, I don't know, talk to Colette's family, talk to her friends, anybody that knew her and get
Right.
like a completely different story about all of this shit. Um,
He's never willing to give Colette more than a few beats of feeling unhappy with him, it's always immediately resolved because they're just so overwhelmed by the awesome accomplishments of Jeff.
Just sounds horrible to me, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I would never be interested in doing that.
Doing what?
Moving into like a tiny apartment in Chicago, like just crushing medical school. I mean, it's obviously just, I shouldn't denigrate his ambition at all, but um,
Were the affairs happening then?
as I pointed out,
Oh, right.
there was one that was happening over even on the summer vacation on Montauk, and
Right.
I think she even goes to the grand jury eventually.
Oh.
I think she got fired for that affair, when he was the construction magnate. But we'll have to, verify that through our careful reading of later chapters here. But yeah, no, and clearly, and he doesn't even try to. He tries to be like open up a little bit about it. It's like one of us was married, this other guy wasn't, and I technically was married, but we had a blast, man. We just had a fucking blast. It was great. Like the California girls are just so open. You know what I mean, man?
Yeah.
And yeah, and Colette never does anything but praise him or whatever, but also like I said, he never attributes any like he can't remember anything she ever said, at least in these tapes.
Nope.
He's like, I think she was happy. I think she was really supportive. She was happy. I was excited.
Well, yeah, I was amazed by the part where she's not happy about Columbia Presbyterian, but then when she actually thinks about the fact that it's number two,
She got over it fast.
she's overwhelmed by that fact.
Yeah, and the fact that she like literally doesn't get to be like talk about it at all till he decides these things.
Right.
I just didn't want to do the Massachusetts thing, the Boston thing. I didn't want to go that route. I don't know why. It wasn't good enough for me. Uh,
Man, that
but
was
anyways, but then he ends with like, by the way, we fucking crushed it. My sports teams, unbelievable success. My winter basketball tournaments.
and I love he's like, yeah, let me see that.
The laughs.
There's a good laugh. Yeah.
He's starting to put in the that's what's different. I think this is the first chapter I can remember where there was lots of bracketed little pauses for laughter.
The kids were doing fine this senior year, and the sports teams that we were involved with did very well too. Like, yeah, of course, like absolutely crushed it.
Any sports team I'm involved with is basically just the fucking champion. Yeah, and then this guy is Thai guy, from Thailand. He said, "Hey, you want to do an appendectomy?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I did an appendectomy. Took a little bit long. Everyone was there was like, "Oh, you fucking liar! You never done one of these before." But the kid ended up being fine. I think he was like 14 or something.
14, 15, 16.
16? Yeah. Who
Yeah.
cares? As far as I know, he lived.
Wow. I was looking at chapter 8.
Yeah. So the
That-
path ahead
It's a
is we have
shorter one.
chapter 8. We're going to be able to we're going to be able to fit that into an episode. And
Hmm.
then another voice we're going to be able to fit into an episode very easily. And then we're going to have to do a little, I mean, we're going to get to the April 6th interrogation. So we're going to do a little bit of planning to sort of make sure we fit in, have the right places to stop.
Yep.
We've already done some, because we have such a dedicated, devoted audience now, we're doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff now that you're never even going to know about, that to make this production just like Amazing. Top
Yeah,
tier.
top tier, man. Not
Yeah.
low effort at all.
No, no. So,
We really
we did a lot of
appreciate you
commenting
guys.
throughout this. You don't really have, I don't really have a strong closing. Um, I just feel gratitude. I don't know about you, Tilly.
Yeah, let me just check if we have any how our listens are going. How many do we have
Oh,
when this
is this a
started?
live? Or is this a live? Can we take calls right now? Is this a live
I
stream?
would love if we could do that, but no, sadly.
No, this is canned. It's still stuck at 412, so we didn't break any new ground in the last hour plus.
All right, look, it is February 14th now officially. It's midnight and I'm looking and on yeah, on February 14th we have one play. Somebody has turned it on.
Holy shit. Was that are you serious?
Yeah, I'm looking at our analytics page right now.
That's fucking amazing, Billy.
Yeah, man, I'm just lucky to be a part of this community.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we're publishing this. I know you're on a bit of a news cleanse. You're not
off and on,
you
off and
know
on.
yeah, there were a couple of long form pieces that came out in the past few days about one of Joe's great antagonists. So I felt like it was important to get this back in the world. Like let the people know we're still here, you know?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
dark stuff. I don't want to know about that.
pretty dark. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Fortunately, there was nothing about just like, hey, was she mean or not? We don't know. Gender role. There was really nothing about
no, it sounds like it was just more bullshit, right?
there was nothing about MacDonald in it or McGinn.
Yeah. Well, good. Should know to stay the fuck away from us
Yeah.
because we're not here to take shit from anyone.
We're not taking their bullshit anymore.
No,
Yeah.
not anymore. No. So yeah, you feel free to drop your hate mail and we'll read it live on air. We'll do a live stream, anything you want, man.
Yeah.
I've even gotten some people recommending we do some highly controversial episodes with McGinnis antagonists, but that's not our style, as far as I know.
No.
No.
No. I mean, we'll see where the spirit leads, but at this moment, I'm not interested in eviscerating Errol Morris.
No, no, we're doing that just fine by reading Fatal Vision line by line and offering our
What
amazing,
is what
pithy
is
insights.
what is Errol Morris gonna say? We watched him be confronted by Smerling with Stokely's actual taped confession that is completely at odds with McDonald's version. And Morris is
Yeah.
like, yeah, don't know.
Don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong about this whole thing. Yeah, I don't think he would. Yeah, it's not a compelling thing, and so that story's settled. So
Yeah, yeah, but the pieces this week were more like, who was the real person? Was she actually nice? Yeah. So,
yeah, who gives a fuck?
well, I feel like this case, like the fact that I don't know, we don't have to go down this negative path. I
No, no, open it up, open it up.
I just feel like I'm gonna do like my charitable thing. Like if you want to say that this person made contributions in in the in a writing life, like wrote some works that mean a lot to you or whatever, that's great. But this should be a blemish. I think this is what upsets me more than anything else. Besides like the personal effects on you guys. It's like she took an insane position. And it's just treated, oh, she wrote this thing about ethics or whatever. No, no, no. She thought MacDonald was innocent.
Yeah. And then that's being sane washed
It's
by all these.
completely
Yeah.
sane washed.
Yeah. No,
She
that's and
took she
that's
took an she took a ridiculous position, like QAnon shaman level
yeah. Yeah.
deranged position. And it's like, okay, yeah, she wrote something about the Freud archives. Like you can love that.
This is why I'm telling you, like only 500 people in the city you're currently residing in even know who the fuck she is. So it's her influence is out is extremely restricted to certain type of blowhard dweeb. Um, so I just don't think that there's a lot of overlap in terms of people that are passionate about the McDonald case or actually have any sane view about it at all that would or are moved by
Right.
her mean girl antics or whatever.
Right, right, right. So I was just thinking about that.
I
That
appreciate that.
that
Appreciate
is
you
that
updating me.
that
That
it's
there,
not part of the narrative at all. The narrative there's no like when the official story, like the general synopsis, it's not like she had this career and she also took this like insane, easily disproved position that trivialized a heinous
well,
act
well,
of
yeah. I mean,
violence.
who's going to make what's to be gained from taking a stand about this person that only 500 people really care about, right? It takes too much effort. People don't think too much about this stuff, right?
Right, right. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too much effort. Like it's you can only make so much room for things being open-ended or nuanced. Um, so you've made lots of high energy attempts to persuade Malcolm followers in the media to like actually think about the case, and you got an incredibly insane response from one of them, like just absolutely the heights of idiocy. Um, just not engaging with your words at all.
Didn't think about what I said at all.
Yeah. So,
And wasn't even aware that Malcolm had professed belief in McDonald's
well,
innocence.
that's been sane washed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's been sane washed. Isn't that just the term of the year, last
yeah,
year?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
The response I got, yeah, she wasn't thinking that hard about it.
no, no, no. Well, that's one of the great things Gene Weingarten did was taking her to task for the moral failing of saying it doesn't matter if he did it or didn't do it. Who cares about the victims? This is just this cool thing to talk about. Turn it into a creative nonfiction exercise. So, which is like, thank God for people like Brian Murtaugh, who at age 24 just got access to the case as doing data entry in the CID and has never let it go. Um, what can we say? There's some people who get it, and that's what part of the mission we're on is to help people who want to get it, and we will not rest until that everyone has had their eyes opened.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're putting this out in a media environment where there are probably a few people reading these long form essays
Uh,
about.
yeah, who knows if there will be a single overlap? We'll be surprised, but we'll find out soon. And we welcome your feedback to let us know.
Yeah, man. All right, Dottie, thank you. McDonald Group, Facebook group, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
It's okay if you don't think I'm a hero.
Billy's a hero.
James is the hero here.
For
Um,
all.
Well, we're just vessels.
Yeah, we're not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's none of our business. And what honestly, what you think of us is none of our business.
None of our business. Keep it to yourself. That's all I ask.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
All right, stop it now.